Good day, students, scholars, and curious viewers. This is Mr. SKT, otherwise known as the Super Kuroishi teacher. In this maths-lit orientated video, we are going to continue the section on banking by doing bank charges. This video does cater to both grade 10s and 11s. So with that being said, let's begin. And just like our first maths-lit video, there are quite a bit of notes. So if you need to pause the video in order to take down notes, by all means so. Stay tuned till the end of the video. So firstly, what is a bank charge? A bank charge essentially is a fee that a bank charges you or reserves for a customer for different transactions and bank activities. So it's a fee that it's a bank's fee for keeping your money. That's essentially what it is. Why should a bank charge you despite them holding your money? I mean, a bank holds your money. That's what you go to a bank for, but who are they to charge you, to take away some of the money that you give them permission to hold? Well, whether you like it or not, a bank is a business. And they need to make profits. Because banks don't just hold your money. They also hold your money. They give you financial consultation. They basically give jobs to people, the tellers, the security, the cleaners, etc. And they need to make money. They need to make money in order to keep things going. So in order to profit, they profit through the fees in which they charge you, the customer, as well as the interest they receive when people go to them for loans. I can't imagine which one they make more out of. Probably the fees, because of a lot more clientele. Yeah, something to think about. What do banks typically charge you for? They charge you service fees whenever you engage in a transaction. So every time you withdraw money, every time you deposit money, you get charged a fee. And also most kinds of banking activities, whether printing a bank statement or account statement, that's the only one I can think of for the time being, but there are a lot more. Any of those kinds of things, they will also charge you a fee. Let me not just skip around the bush. This here, by the way, is the Shooter's Top Class Maths Literacy Grade 11 book that I use from time to time, and here is a decent example of what one could consider a statement. In fact, let me turn to a better page for you. There we go. So, for example, a NetBank saving deposit account. This is an example of all the bank charges. So withdrawals, deposits, purchases, inquiries, all of these are examples of things that they can charge you for. And these are examples of the types of fees that you should expect. It's not just NetBank, it's any kind of bank. Right. Now, if you looked closely, you would have seen two sort of terms over there. The terms stop order and debit order. And just to go back. Just to go back so you can see. There we go. Stop order and debit order. But what are they? But what are they exactly? What is the difference between a stop order and a debit order? Okay, both are predetermined payments made at regular intervals. However, a stop order is made through your bank, so therefore you supply the banking details of the party you are paying. A debit order, on the other hand, is made through a third party, so you supply your banking details. So for example, stop orders and debit orders, you know how, so if you get, like, for example, things that your bank automatically deducts from your account from for every 25th day, for example, that's an example of a stop or debit order. The difference, because it has been programmed to be deducted from your account on a certain day, is predetermined. And the regular interval, usually it's like a month, usually it's every month, but that's in the terms of the stop or the debit order when you are first doing it. Now, the difference between the two is that the stop order is made through a bank. It's through your bank. And you are giving them the other party's banking details. So the bank will make the bank will program the deduction. Whereas a debit order is made through a third party, and they will need your banking details in order for the deduction to happen. So usually things like, for example, when you take a contract on a cell phone, one thing they will ask you is your banking details. That is so they can set up a debit order, so they can make the deductions. They would need your full permission before they can do something like that. And that's where the giving of the banking details usually is the authorization. Yeah. Right. Why is it necessary to study how different banks charge you? Well, that should be quite straightforward. It's so you can compare the different fees and services, so you can make a decision on which bank you wanted to subscribe to based on affordability and your specific needs. Not every bank may offer you what you want in terms of their accounts, in terms of their rates. So it's up to you, the customer, the potential investor, to seek out what the banks offer so you can make the best decision for yourself. Right. What does "or part thereof" mean? So some of these transactions, for example, over here, whenever a withdrawal or a deposit is made, the fee is generated by, for example, an amount plus something per an amount or part thereof. So what that means is, now I actually wrote this out much better. So fees for withdrawals and deposits are based on the amount that is withdrawn or deposit. So for example, if you withdrew, let's say 200 Rand, the fee that you will be charged is going to be based around that. Or if you deposited something like 1,500, your fee will be based around that. That makes it fair. Now, if you see "or part thereof," that means that if the amount has a remainder, after dividing by the interval, the remainder is counted as another one of that interval. It sounds a bit confused. I know it might sound a bit confusing. Let me help you. Let me explain. So for example, let's say a fee was charged at 1 rand and 10 cents per 100 rand or part thereof. Okay? So that means every 100 rand is charged at 1 rand and 10 cents. Okay? However, if you are dealing with an amount that goes over after division, then that remainder is counted as another one. So for example, if 100 rand is withdrawn, then that's an immediate 1 rand and 10 cents fee. Understand? If 400 rand is withdrawn, so 400 rand, the fee is generated for every 100 rand withdrawn. So how many hundreds in 400? There are 4 100s. So therefore the fee would be 4 times 1 rand 10 cents, which equates to a 4 rand 40 cent fee. But now, what if you had something like 750 withdrawn? So essentially we're going to ask ourselves, how many hundreds are in 750? So you know there are 7 hundreds. So that's already going to be 7 of the 100 rand intervals, leaving 50 rand remainder. This is where the part thereof comes in. That 50 is going to be counted as another 100. It doesn't matter how much more. It doesn't matter how much more it is. It could be 701 even. If it goes into the next, it will be counted as another 1. So with that, that means that the fee would not be 7 times 110, it will be 8 times 1 rand 10 cents. That 50, that extra bit, pushes it into the next interval. So the fee would be 8 times 1 rand 10 cents, giving you an 8 rand 80 cent fee. I know that's a lot to take. I know that's a lot to take in, students. But we will get more practice along the way. If you need, and don't forget, if ever you have any questions, just don't be afraid to comment me, and I will answer as swiftly as I can. With that, now this is not the end of. Don't worry, this ain't the end of the video just yet, students. What we're gonna do now, we're gonna go through an exercise to give you a better view of how to answer questions based on bank charges. So we're going to just borrow the textbook for a little bit. So we're going to be focusing on this activity over here where we're dealing with a Nedbank check account. Here are all the different fees. Let me bring this more into the light. That's better. Well, almost. There we go. We're going to be dealing with all these different fees, and we're going to be answering the questions that follow. Yes, all 9 of them. All right. Let's go. Number one, calculate your bank charges if you use your check card to buy 350 rands worth of groceries every week for 4 weeks. Okay, so what we're going to do then, a check card is being used to make a payment. So the fee for check card payments purchases is 3 rand 65 cents with no regard to the amount being used. we are using the check card purchases and not the check payments because it's mentioned in the question check card. So the question states that what is the bank charges if this check card was used every week for 4 weeks? So that means it was used 4 times. That means the bank charge will be 3 Rand 65 cents. That was the amount times 4, which is 14 Rand and 60 cents. Determine the bank charges if you made 2 cash withdrawals at a Nedbank ATM twice a month. One for 450 and one for 1,200. Okay, so we are going to a cash withdrawal. Yes, cash withdrawal at a Nedbank ATM. Yes, at a ATM. So according to the fees, the amount for a Nedbank the fee for a Nedbank ATM withdrawal is 3 Rand 50 plus 110 for every 100 Rand or part thereof. So the way I did this, so there were two payments done. One for the 450 and the other was 1,200. So the first one is going to be 3 Rand 50 plus 1 Rand 10 for every 100 and part thereof. So there in 450 there are 400s and an extra 50, which means there are 5. There are going to be 5 payments. So that's why I have 350 plus 110 times 5. That's going to give me 9 Rand. For the 1,200, fortunately there's no extra intervals, so you just go there are straight 12 intervals of 100. So that's going to be 3 Rand 50 plus 110 times 12, giving you 16 Rand and 70 cents, which means the full fee for those two will be 25 Rand and 70 cents. That's B. C. During a certain month, you had to pay fees for your child. You had to withdraw cash of 2,800 in a Nedbank branch because the limit of your card is 1,000 for cash withdrawal at an ATM. Determine the bank charges for this withdrawal. So all I can tell you for a question like this is literally block out the extra information. You need just focus on exactly what they want you to work with. You're working with a 2,800 that was withdrew at a branch. So this qualifies as a withdrawal over the counter. Withdrawal over the counter is 23 Rands plus 1 Rand 10 for every 100. So 2,800 was withdrawn. So that's going to be 23 Rands plus 110 times 28. Because there's 28 100s in 2,800. Giving you a final answer of 53 Rands and 80 cents. D. You are in a place where a Nedbank ATM is unavailable and you need to use that one to withdraw 850 cash. How much are their bank charges? So another bank's cash withdrawal is calculated at 550 plus 350 plus 110 for every 100. So withdrawing 850 means that's 800s plus one more because of the 50. So that's 9. So it's going to be 550 plus 350 plus 110 times 9, which gives you 18 Rand and 90 cents. E. You have 2 internal debit orders and 1 external debit order for 220 with your debit, check, or current account. Calculate the bank charges on these debit orders. Okay, so here's the thing for the debit orders, internal and external. There is no regarding the amount of the debit orders, so it's just going to be straight up just usage of these prices. There are 2 internals and 1 external by the question. Yes, so internal is at 550, external is at 1150. So 2 550s and 1 1150, giving 2250. Now F was pretty interesting. I'll let you know what I thought of F, and you tell me what you think, if I was thinking along the right lines. At the beginning of the month, you went to an ATM and you printed a mini statement. On reading the statement, you noticed that there was 1 unpaid internal debit order. You then went inside, requested a 1-page statement because you want to study it better. It was the first statement you requested that month. What are the bank charges for the transaction you did on that day, including the unpaid internal debit? So the way I saw it is that now a statement is somewhat, I believe it should qualify as a balance inquiry, because I did not see anything else saying statement. So I made the assumption that it would be under bank balance inquiry. A mini statement was done at the ATM, so that was the 1 Rand. So that's 1 Rand 20. Now there was one that you did over the counter, but it was indicated to be the first one. Where is it? It was indicated to be the first statement of that month, and according to this, the first one is free. So that one wasn't count. So we don't count any more for that. And the debit order was said to be unpaid. Now I don't know. I don't believe you would you would include the 550 because it was an unpaid one. So my logic is that the only bank fee you would get is the mini statement that was done for the Nedbank ATM, which comes to 1 Rand 20. If you see any error in my way, or if you see in a different way, please let me know. I would personally love to hear like to read how you interpret it. Let's continue. G. During the weekend, you did some small jobs doing your neighbor's yard near your home. Once completed, you got payments amounting to 1,300, and you deposited the cash into a branch during your lunch hour. Was the bank charges? So let's see. We're doing with a deposit with cash. So that's 350 plus 115 for every 100. So 350 plus 1 Rand 15 for every 100. 1,300 there is 13 100s, giving you a final answer of 18 Rands and 45 cents. You have written a check to pay for services. Unfortunately, the supplier tried to cash the check and there wasn't enough money in your account. How much will the bank charge you for the dishonored check? I went with 85 in this case because that was the amount indicated for the first 3 dishonored payments. So that's what I went with. There was no mention that there were other dishonored payments. That's why I went with 85. And then finally, you make a check for 1,650 to pay for services rendered for your car services recently. How much in bank charges would this check payment be? So a check payment. It's a check payment and not a check card payment. And that was done at 1,650. According to this, 31 Rand for all values above 1,500. So as a result, my answer was 31 Rands. And that, my students, was a little lesson with an exercise based on bank charges. If you enjoy this content, please leave a like on this video, share, and please share, subscribe, and comment your questions and anything that you want to see in the future. With that being said, have a nice day.